All right. As education moves further into the age of information and technology, teachers are forced to focus on standardized testing scores over complete understanding and appreciation for the art of learning. The school system tracks teachers and students like cattle for slaughter, maximizing the efficiency at which students achieve a diploma. STEM classes are treated like precious metals, and the more offered at a school, the higher its prestige. Systematic learning is a step toward the brave new world we call modern education, and its effects are already taking place, leaving classrooms without teachers and parents opting for alternative forms of education. Today, I fear for the next generation of learners. I fear for the death of public education. Hello, everyone. My name is Caden Ketchman, and I am a rising senior at a magnet school called Cumberland Polytechnic High School. I have experienced public education from kindergarten through middle school with a brief one-year experience with homeschool in 7th grade. The magnet school I applied to and now attend is an early college program that exists in a single hallway of a community college in Fayetteville, North Carolina, my hometown. In my early years of education, right up until high school, I always found immense difficulty relating to and making friends with the other students at my schools. Had you known me then, you would have called me a social butterfly, but I was in fact quite a closed book. Underneath the facade of an excitable, extroverted kid, I was deeply afraid that the other students wouldn't understand my intense drive and appreciation throughout education. If you asked me in 1st grade, I would have told you that my dream college was Princeton University. Boy, was I naive. Now it's Yale. But I digress. When I applied to my current school, CPHS, I had hopes that I would find my people there and finally feel comfortable with the person that I am. I dealt with pretty intense exclusion throughout middle school, especially, and I was ready to move on to something better. As it turned out, I was right. CPHS is my happy place. The friends I made there are so much more genuine than I ever had in the past. I truly found my people, and I was proud of that. My freshman year, I had a large friend group, and the academic environment was collaborative. It was also highly demanding, and after freshman year, a tremendous number of students opted to go back to their home schools and drop out of the advanced program. My freshman English teacher, Miss Duz, was known as one of the most difficult teachers around, and it showed. The workload was highly rigorous, and on top of the other 2 core high school classes and the 3 simultaneous college classes we took that shared one class period, we were pushed to our limits. And I loved every second of it, or at least most seconds of it. I learned to appreciate the challenge of learning and the way I could literally feel my understanding of the world and literature and sciences expand. The art of learning gives that to us, and for those who are willing to work to appreciate it, it is unmatched. Fast forward to the 2nd semester of my sophomore year, COVID is still running rampant, but we are beginning to come back in person. My desire to learn was somewhere in the gutters, and my academic philosophy was that lectures were to be treated as podcasts. You can tell I have no shame in discussing this because I am fully willing to admit that I was playing Minecraft while my biology teacher explained the steps of meiosis in another tab. To be quite candid, I fell out of love with education when I watched my teachers and professors concede to a pandemic. That's not to say I hated every class, though. I had a pre-calculus professor who would record long lectures, hold hour-and-a-half-long meetings, explaining how to do problems that confused us, and often stayed back with me to answer my numerous questions about matrix theory and concepts far over my 15-year-old head. Many of the students disliked this professor for the rigor of her course, but those of us with a passion for learning had a respect for her that couldn't be erased by a few confusing homework assignments. These anecdotes may seem a little rambly, but I wanted to demonstrate a few major concepts here. For one, the work that teachers put into making a class engaging and interesting don't go unnoticed. When I joined the Blackboard Collaborate call 5 minutes before its ending on the last day to say hello to my professor, when nobody else showed, I appreciated that she was still there, just in case. Secondly, education is not just about great teachers, it's about finding your people. Specialization in high school allows us to work with those who genuinely care about academia and motivate us to be the best students that we can be. The more opportunities we have to find our people, the better and more effective our educational experience will be. Elaborating upon one of the stories I mentioned earlier, that high school biology class I mined and crafted through the lectures of actually holds a rather disconcerting meaning to me. Toward the end of the semester, I began to realize I didn't grasp the concepts of the class very well. Being a straight A student on my way to being valedictorian, a bad EOC score was not an option. For those of you outside of education or in a state that doesn't have EOCs are state tests that are used to compare teachers, students, and schools to each other. Those scores are very important, especially as a high achieving student. I had very little time left to study, and I was worrying it would end badly. After a few hours of glancing at old notes, I took my bio EOC, and completely to my surprise, I got a perfect score. Now, if you had asked me then to explain photosynthesis in any detail, I would have stared at you in a complete daze. That standardized test was about as indicative of my knowledge of biology as playing Jeopardy is to your ability to provide for yourself. The school system has been moving more and more towards standardized testing, despite colleges testing the waters on a testing-free future. Liberal arts fields are not very easily tested, which demonstrates a clear motive to embrace STEM more significantly. The more a school system can test, the higher their scores, the more a system can appear to be more successful. We need to remember that just like anything else, education is a governmental system that needs to appeal to their constituents. When you move into a new town, you check the scores to see if it's a good district or not. This unfortunately leads to a mechanical drive to achieve high test scores while ignoring the art of learning I mentioned earlier. I have seen teachers print out and label their standards so that students know exactly what is expected under R1 and L5. This makes learning robotic, but more than that, it ignores the nuances of fields like English and social studies. To test in these fields, students need to fully understand, fully master complex skills and concepts that require practice and exposure. If you ask a student 5 times to tell you what Golgi bodies do, they will either get it right 5 times or get it wrong all 5 times. But if you ask a student to demonstrate a skill in inference in literature, they may only get it right 3 out of the 5 times. But of those 2 concepts, mastery of the latter is significantly more beneficial. I may be able to tell you the orientation of spindle fibers during metaphase, but if I can't tell you that when my mother squeezes my hand under the table that I need to shut my mouth, I have a big problem. It's called critical thinking, folks. And if you are anything like my American literature teacher, you see that it's disappearing rapidly. The skills that we pick up from studying the liberal arts are invaluable. These are the skills that drive CEOs, world leaders, advocates, detectives, doctors, lawyers, and astrophysicists. The liberal arts philosophy empowers the Ivy League to deliver world-class education. Harvard's lawyers, Yale's politicians, and UPenn's businessmen and women are changing the world with their fundamental footing in the liberal arts. Embracing nuance, analyzing history and politics, these are the things that make our students excellent. These are the principles that will empower the next generation of learners to be the best. Let's be the generation of educators and students that end the rhetoric of useless education and bring back to reality the Renaissance man. Let's stop killing creativity by pressuring young students to study career-oriented STEM fields like coding and IT, and let's start embracing the curiosity of these young men and women. I would like to pause for a moment to explain that I am, of course, not against STEM and IT fields. These are some of the most useful, lucrative, and revolutionary paths in the modern era. We need people in these fields, but I find that those who are interested in those studies will find them. We don't need to coax middle schoolers into STEM electives because it will help them get into college. This is the type of mentality that has left many in my generation burned out. Allow these learners to explore and grow. Allow their education to be rogue and structured in a way that works for them. I call all educators and students here today to dismantle this system that is crushing our natural childhood curiosity. I know that this is very much easier said than done, but I challenge you to try. Teachers, teach your students to value the art of learning more than their grade. Teach them that growing is better than passing, active is better than passive. Teach your students that being educated is the most powerful thing you can be. Make your students feel heard and understood and answer that question of why do I need to know this confidently? Because if you don't know either, then why are we wasting our time? Teach your students that they will only be students for so long and that one day they will take that last history final, that last English test or philosophy exam, and they will never learn formally again. Appreciate what has been given to us as students and teachers and revolt against what is suppressing our learning. Many of us are learning to function in a system that is working against us. When you show up today and every day to inspire change, keep with you that memory of graduating high school and knowing that you earned it. Hold tightly to the memory of a time when APs weren't tickets hoarded until you had enough to go to Stanford. Think back to a time before College Confidential told valedictorians they would be lucky to get into the University of North Carolina or Texas or Michigan. Don't forget that education was never designed to be a competition. And despite what the Department of Education in my home state of North Carolina says, students do not grow their skills and scores at the rate of a small plant. More APs does not mean better learning, and no matter how many times College Board tells you otherwise, spending $300 to take the SAT 6 times until you get that 1,600 is not worth it, and it isn't worth growing to hate learning. Trust me, I know from experience. I am truly saddened to see teachers telling students not to grow up to become an educator, and I am sad to watch my teacher's eyes well up while she watches a profession she once loved become mechanized and soulless. In sum, I would love to see education allow for us to find our people, learn creatively and actively, embrace curiosity for the weirdly specific and ask why this matters. Move away from standardized testing and hold tightly to the belief that primary education is not intended to spit out technical workers. Embrace nuance and critical thinking and watch it blossom into leadership and innovation. Become a lifelong learner, become a Renaissance man or woman. Inhale the smell of that fresh new book and unapologetically learn what interests you. Thank you.